2. General Marcus Ironside, commander of Army Group Stormhold. From Field Marshal Eric Thorsten, commander of Blade Theater, Nexora. We are delighted to learn of your effective encirclement of the Crixus capital, and we trust your troops have appreciated the short break from combat after accomplishing it. We also note your report that your group has regained its footing from an organizational and logistical standpoint. At this time, I am writing to you directly to sanction a move you have probably been expecting. Generals Silverstein and Durand have received orders to relieve your outer armed forces from their responsibilities on that front. They are set to arrive tomorrow morning to commence the transfer of duty. This will allow the whole of your group to concentrate on the inner arm front, specifically the capital city of Nexus itself. During the coming 3 days, you are to redeploy all forces under your control around the city. On the 4th day, you commence an advance to fully eliminate the city as a military threat. We anticipate you will accomplish this mission within 4 weeks from the beginning of the engagement. AFS Gagarin is prepared to offer air support assistance throughout this operation. Additional preparations will be coordinated via communications among my headquarters, your headquarters, and the headquarters of Army Groups Liberty District and Bordeaux. The Prime Minister has also dispatched a package for you. We presume you are aware of how to utilize the contents of this package. We additionally request photographic evidence when you or one of your operatives carries out the utilization. General Marcus Ironside, the aspect of king that had grieved the death of his brothers, who fell defending Asgard, was thankful to spearhead the demolition of such a cherished city of the Dracus barbarians. But the side of him that had raided camps and conquered strongholds recognized the challenging mission that lay ahead. Nexus, unlike most of the world Crixus, was an anticipated target of invasion and was readied accordingly. It was a fortress encircled by mines and artillery, with sufficient food and ammunition to sustain the defenders for months. And the defenders themselves were no pushovers. The supreme ruler of Crixus only permitted warriors with the right blend of savage skill and zealous loyalty to join his city guard, the humans dubbing them Ironhides. 250,000 of the finest Dracus fighters on Crixus, equipped with the best and most fearsome weapons the Dominion could produce, stationed inside a bunker the size of a metropolis. Until they managed to take out at least a portion of the anti-aircraft guns, there would be no possibility of air support or parachuting in additional troops. Even after breaching the outer defenses, human forces would be engaged in fierce urban warfare, facing an enemy with absolutely nothing left to lose, not to mention the millions of civilians that would be caught in the crossfire. However, the human race's recently discovered might had to be taken into account. King commanded 2.5 million soldiers, outnumbering the Dracus 10-1. While the Dracus arsenal was substantial, his was virtually limitless, the capital being one of the few remaining strongholds, and even it was now surrounded. Fire support was overwhelmingly in his favor, deploying superior weapons and relying on AFS Gagarin and its numerous instruments of destruction. Morale was at its peak, with everyone aware that victory, at least in the core worlds, was unavoidable. King pondered the package that accompanied the letter. It was a crate sizable enough to contain a heavy machine gun, he mused, resting on the floor of his command post near the capital's edge. What struck him as particularly unusual was its origin, the Prime Minister himself. King recognized that seizing the capital of a core world would be as much a political triumph as a military one, but didn't dwell much on those implications. He approached the crate, noticing the 2 latches on the lid, and unfastened both. Raising the lid up and letting it fall on the backside of the crate, he surveyed the contents, dozens, perhaps 100, small rectangular metal canisters. Selecting one and removing the top face, he inspected what was inside, a small folded piece of navy blue fabric. Having a good idea what it might be, he unfolded the fabric, and a familiar sight greeted him. The Federation banner, 28 white stars arranged in a circle, surrounding the one larger star in the middle, against the navy blue background. Glancing back into the canister, he observed what appeared to be a collapsible pole. This little thing was about to go on one crazy journey. Men! Our Ring of Steel has been commanded to crush this forsaken city, and our modest corps has been granted permission to make the initial strike. By nightfall, our artillery will have rained 1,000,000 shells upon the brutish cowards within. Before the week's end, we will have torn apart and incinerated the expanse separating us from the city's dark core. Within a month, our forces and our standards will be all that remain standing, the Dracus hordes having been shown the merits of human industry. But at this moment, they huddle in their small fortifications, aiming their puny weapons at us, still clinging to the illusion of ultimate victory. Let's provide them with a dose of reality. These Boy Scouts you've dubbed Ironhides believe they're the toughest, most formidable group out there. I'd consider giving them a human history book, but I think it would be more effective if you were to teach through action. Recall your origins, the accomplishments of your forebears. Through either clever technology or sheer stubborn determination, we've come to rule our home planet, to shape it as we see fit. Through either calculated risk-taking or courage bordering on insanity, we departed Earth and conquered the stars. Through both military might and focused fury, we will crush this pitiful dominion to dust. Also recall their history, how they spread across systems like locusts, consuming worlds and producing cesspools of feuds, tribes, and wars for profit. How since the time we constructed the pyramids, they had financed criminals and terrorists, plundering and enslaving the innocent. Destiny has determined that we will be the generation to liberate the galaxy from these monsters, to rout their forces and overthrow their tyrants. We have been blessed with prosperity, born of hard work and innovation, and when they decided we would be better off as chained servants, we melted down everything we possessed and reshaped it into a force unmatched by any. If they still think they've got a shot at winning this blasted war, shatter their beliefs, then shatter their bodies. If they dig in and fight, overpower them, unleash every terror you've got on them. If they attempt to withdraw, to pull back, cut them down when they make the error of turning their backs on a human. And if they try to give up, to atone for the atrocities they've committed, look them in the eye, recall the faces of those you've lost to their actions, and the countless billions who've endured suffering for millennia, and squeeze that trigger. All units, commence firing. Captain Michael Hawkins. Before him, Dracus Ironhides perched securely on a well-fortified machine gun emplacement, divided from Henry's location by 50 meters of minefields and razor wire. To his rear, the lifeless and expiring remnants of a third of his soldiers sprawled where they had fallen, either cut down by the Dracus machine gunners' barrage or torn apart by mortar fire and additional mines. Flanking him are his troops, the survivors of Blue Company. Their mission was to breach the Dracus line of anti-tank guns, sheltered within concrete fortifications, to enable armor to penetrate and maneuver around the Dracus positions. The carnage around him showed no signs of stopping. Every couple of seconds, the explosion of a mortar round would echo through the air, often followed by screams, then silence as victims were either overcome with shock, struck by machine gun fire, or bled out. The position Blue Company had managed to reach, an earthen bank just before the wire, offered more protection than the exposed killing field they had just sprinted across, but would still prove fatal if they lingered there. They would need to find a way to push forward. "Corporal, we need some heavy fire on that gun nest ASAP. "Aye, sir. Brown, point that blasted bazooka at some apes, will you?" The ever-articulate Corporal Graves called out to his section's direct fire support specialist, Private Ash. "Yes, sir. Firing now." Brown, lying prone like most of the troops on the line, swiftly rises to a crouching position, aiming his pulse cannon bazooka at the nest directly ahead. Squeezing the trigger, the high-explosive round screams out of the barrel and detonates on the nest, causing it to collapse and disintegrate before the Dracus troops occupying it. "Open fire!" Troops from Blue Company seize the opportunity and open fire on the newly exposed Dracus soldiers, mowing them down before they can find shelter. Brown, as swiftly as he had stood up, dropped back into a prone position, narrowly avoiding another machine gun sights. "Nice job. We could be on the verge of a breakthrough here. Now what should we do about this barbed wire?" "We might be able to crush the wire, Captain, if we had some damn tanks," Lieutenant Sinclair offered helpfully. Monroe was second in command of Blue Company and had served with Henry since before the conflict began. "Not till we deal with those ATs. How many Bangalores have we got?" "About enough for 3 big breaches. What do you say, 1 per platoon?" "I'd like to spread out further, but we work with what we have. Begin placing the Bangalores, one for each platoon. A Bangalore blade consisted in essence of an extended strip of plastic explosive encased in aluminum bands. When inserted into a network of barbed wire and set off, the aluminum fragments into shrapnel, which slices through the wire. Along the line, soldiers swiftly toss Bangalores into the wire ahead, keeping an eye on the two nests still flanking their position. "Collect whatever ammo you can find. Jones, we've got injured men here. Come up," shouted Corporal Mill, before she and the wounded Private Taylor were both ripped apart by a mortar round. The remnants of their bodies fell onto the men of their own unit, drenching them in blood. "Motherfuckers, keep your damn heads down, ladies, or we'll be next," the new commander of Mill's section shouted. Henry was growing tired of watching his men get picked off without consequence. It was time to take the fight to the Dracus. "To hell with this! Fire in the hole!" With a press of the detonator, each stack of Bangalores ignited, tearing through the tangle of wire with high-velocity strips of aluminum and blasting the pieces apart in the explosion, creating 3 wide openings in the wire for Blue Company to push forward. "Get moving! Get moving! Get moving! Come on, you sons of bitches! Are you planning to live forever?" The Dracus Ironhides manning the nests witnessed the sight of a human wave. Upon breaching the wire, the humans dispersed, dashing and weaving their way across the 50-meter-wide no-man's land, striving to follow an erratic path and avoid the machine guns. Dash, take cover behind tank spike, sprint, evade recently disturbed ground, indicating a landmine, keep running, shelter inside crater, dash, sidestep, sprint, until finally reaching the ultimate objective, the Dracus warriors positioned in their nests. The crews operating the heavy machine guns switched to their rifles as the humans narrow the distance. The growing number of humans who've crossed over raise their own weapons against the Dracus crews. Light machine gunners create makeshift foxholes from craters, pinning the Dracus down under cover while even more humans close in. Now the humans hold the upper hand. "Open fire! Punch through, even if it kills you!" With their superior numbers and weaponry, the humans gradually wear down the Dracus until each one had fallen under the relentless barrage. All that remained of this portion of defenses were the bunkers and their mostly ineffective AT guns. "Hurry! Encircle the bunkers! Don't allow them to flee! Flame section, I need everything inside those bunkers cooked to medium rare." "Understood, sir. You heard him. Blast open those doors." The final instance of the anti-tank team brought a sudden realization of the humans' potential, followed by a thunderous clang as the bunker entrance was blasted open, then the immeasurable agony of being burned alive. Their sole consolation was the swiftness of it all. By the time most succumbed, half of their digits had already turned to cinders. Henry, he and his company having at last cleared the defended area, let out a sigh of relief. "Thank the Lord Almighty. All right, Colonel Blackwood. This is Blue Company. We've made a breakthrough. I repeat, we have made a breakthrough. You are free to send in the tanks." "Got it, Henry. Nice job out there. Just ensure the Dracus don't reclaim it, and we'll be finished in 10 minutes. Radcliffe signing off. Only a few more weeks of this and we'll be retiring to Montenegro. Isn't that right, Captain?" Henry glances over to see Lieutenant Sinclair, taking a drink from his water canister. "Come on, Lieutenant. We've only just gotten you potty trained. You're not abandoning the fleet so soon, are you?" "Heh, I'd suggest it for you, John, before you end up having a heart attack or something like that." "What, and put you in command? I may be a tough son of a gun, but I'm not that harsh on the troops." As Henry and Monroe carried on with their good-natured teasing, a somewhat grim thought entered Henry's mind. Henry was known as the old man of the company, and he was, but he hadn't even reached 40 yet. Monroe himself was just over 30. The men and women of Blue Company had prior combat experience and had been in several firefights before, but even so, most of them were under 25, with a few officers between 25 and 30. Young men who were still attending a university when war broke out were now being extracted bit by bit from the minefields behind him. This was only within the initial days of capturing the city, and already thousands of young lives had been lost. How many more are to come? Lieutenant Thomas Frost, William Willie. Mark found himself engaged in an activity he never imagined he would, admiring Dracus engineering. Not for any kind of aesthetic appeal or objective technical excellence, naturally. Humans are quite difficult to impress when it comes to construction. He was appreciating their work, unintentionally making his task much simpler. As it happens, Dracos adore a good parade, their large impressive weapons and war vehicles rumbling through the city for the awestruck crowds. Given this, it's hardly surprising the victory ring of streets in the city of Nexus, the designated route for the yearly parade of the planet Drisiev's war machine, was spacious and wide, constructed from quality materials. Naturally, his squadron of tanks were experiencing relatively little difficulty making progress. They were traveling on ground designed for tanks to traverse. Naturally, the Dracos had the foresight to install tank spikes, and the majority of the city's armored units were concealed under debris for safeguarding, effectively turning into improvised artillery. Moreover, it seemed like every person around had access to a missile launcher, anti-tank rifle, or some other weapon capable of inflicting more than superficial damage. Nevertheless, he wouldn't want to be anywhere else. He enlisted in the Marines to explore planets and avoid spending his entire life on a station. Given that he couldn't shoot well and disliked desk work, armor was his choice, and what an impressive piece of armor he received. The TBV-78 Grizzly main battle tank was one of the finest weapon systems to ever touch soil. Able to fire its 130mm railgun using either high-explosive, kinetic armor-piercing, or anti-infantry scattershot rounds, then reload within 5 seconds and fire again. While moving at high speed, striking targets 10 kilometers away, it is undoubtedly one of the single most lethal boxes of steel on tracks deployed by either Council or Dominion forces. He also had a fine crew, Sparks at the wheel, Wrench manning the main gun, and Static on the radio. To the outside world, they were Driver Wells, Sergeant Cooper, and Radio Operator Finch. But inside the tank, which they'd affectionately named Thunderbolt, they were family to one another, as they had to be if they were going to spend their military careers confined within a pressurized box. And they were pressurized, another advantage of the armored core. While all the nasty, hyper-evolved microbes were outside, inside they could perform a sanitation sweep once they sealed the hatch and removed their outer layers. Imagine him, a mere lieutenant, doing what a major could only fantasize about while on duty, scratching his nose. Tanks are awesome. At this point, however, they had an objective. Army Group Stormhold had swept through the outer districts, equivalent to suburbia in a human city, and had arrived at the industrial zone. The Ironhides had established themselves within the numerous factories, continuing to manufacture supplies for the Dracos. The task of 23rd Armored Squadron Razors was to serve as a vanguard, opening a route for the infantry behind them, allowing them to move in and root out the enemy. Flechette Leader, Flechette Gamma here. We've completed our sweep of the small arms factory and are now heading to regroup with you on the main road. Grabbing his command unit, Willie replied, "Copy that, Gamma. Beta, how are you managing?" A handful of holdouts clinging to debris, nothing we can't handle on our own. We'll wrap up in 20. Good to hear, Beta. Don't let your guard down anyways. Leader out. This city is a damn mess. Haven't they ever heard of urban planning? Wrench was examining a map of the area, a barely comprehensible maze of lines and squares. While the tactical display was a much higher quality holographic interface, making more sense, the strategic view wasn't as critical this far down, so a paper map and a pencil were provided. With little else to do outside an engagement, Wrench was marking their patrol, crossing out cleared areas as they proceeded. That's the reason you aren't driving. Spend enough time living in London, and it becomes instinctive. Hey, I'd almost expect you to go outside and ask for directions, Sparks, right after you'd roll over a field hospital. If you two don't quiet down, I'm going to turn this tank around. I swear to God, you bunch would be the death of... At that moment, a deafening bang rattled the tank, a sound reminiscent of the largest tree in the world crashing into the largest lake, echoed outside, followed by the chassis vibrating like a tuning fork. The tank lurched upwards, causing a brief sensation of high Gs, immediately countered by a fleeting moment of low Gs as the vehicle settled back onto the ground. What the fuck was that? Have we got hostiles? I damn spilled me coffee. Shut up, Static. Sparks, you see anything out there? Not a single thing, Willie. No armor, no weapons, not even a crazy guy with a rocket launcher. Absolutely nothing. I'll verify this with Alpha. Alpha, Flechette leader. We've just heard a loud banging sound, probably an explosion right outside our tank. Could you provide a visual from your position? Understood, leader. We caught that as well. Adjusting the camera now. You're not going to believe what we're seeing. What is it, Alpha? I think you just rolled over a mine. What did he say? He said Sparks just rolled over a mine. Hold on a second. Sparks just ran us over a mine? Hey, I do not roll over mines. I'm a professional. Affirmative, we can verify. There's a crater, approximately 5 meters in diameter, directly ahead of your position. It appears you've triggered a mine. Unfricking believable. Do you see any damage, Alpha? Not really. Treads look okay. Armor seems undamaged. Nevertheless, it's something we should examine when we return, leader. Roger, Alpha. Thank you. Out. It's gonna be a nightmare, checking for damage. Cheer up. No alerts are coming in. All systems remain green. Thunderbolt is doing okay. It's just, how many more of those mines are we able to withstand? Granted, Thunderbolt's returned after being hit by missiles, but we're in blasted Nexus. This is beyond just space pirates with pop guns. Another explosion, slightly farther away, echoed out. More than simply a blast, it was combined with the noise of a brick wall crumbling and the low rumble of treads on cracked concrete. To top it off, the onboard AI declared the newest threat to the crew's ongoing survival. Enemy vehicles identified. Classification, Dominion Super Heavy Combat Vehicle, Clasani. Quantity, 1. Damn, Wrench, man the main gun. Sparks, get us off this road. Static, request an airstrike. All Flechettes, be warned. We've got a Leviathan here on the main road. Take cover and stay behind it. The Leviathan, as the Federation fleets had dubbed it, due to its distinctive black-on-white urban camouflage, was a behemoth of a vehicle. Twice the size of a black bear, sporting an artillery gun in its turret, it was a lumbering tank killer, capable of obliterating any anticipated targets with a single round, while being shielded by layers of high-quality, classified armor. Exorbitantly priced, with merely 5 units deployed in the city, they nonetheless proved to be a significant headache for Federation tank crews. Alpha here. Understood. We're heading for the side strip, was all Alpha managed to say before the Leviathan swiveled its massive gun towards it and began firing, tearing through the comparatively small black bear without difficulty. Damn it! Okay, Sparks, keep us going. Get into the alleys before he targets us. Beta and Gamma, Alpha's down. But the Leviathan is on our tail. We're sending his position to you now. We encircle him, keep him occupied, and we let the fairies take care of him. Static, what's the status on that air support? Air Command, R.O. Macaulay, of 17th Armored Squadron reporting. We've encountered a Leviathan at theater coordinates 170-264 north, 285 Joshuk 3 Urs east. Requesting airstrike, AFS 65 Horus, armor piercing. Understood, 17th Armored. We'll dispatch a wing to your location as quickly as possible. Estimated time of arrival, 3 minutes. Sounds like we're cutting it a little close, Willie. Just keep your eyes on that bastard. How are we, Sparks? We've reached cover, but he'll be trying to flush us out. Don't worry, he's too broad to pursue us in here. At that instant, the Leviathan unleashed another shot, this time targeting the gutted structure positioned between itself and the humans. The building swiftly crumbled, once more exposing the Thunderbolt crew to the open. He's gonna topple half the blasted city to catch us. Don't stop! Wrench, show him some proper behavior. With delight! Pointing the primary cannon at the flank of the Leviathan, Wrench squeezed the trigger, launching a dense projectile of depleted uranium as large as a human's arm, hurtling towards the Leviathan at 2.3 kilometers per second. It makes a dent in the Leviathan's side plating. Not exactly the one shot I was hoping for. Why can't we ever get sent to fight lousy standard tanks? Not the time, Wrench. How much time left, Static? 2 minutes. Okay, we need to get him out in the street so the Mots have a clear shot. What do you think our odds are, Sparks, if we made a dash for the opposite side of the road? No way in hell, we can't possibly move fast enough before he's got us in his sights. However, we can't remain here or venture deeper into the alleyways. He'll simply pursue us and stay concealed from the Mots. I have an idea. All those in the tank fell quiet at Static's words. Willie was the first one to reply. At this point, Static, go right ahead. Why don't we park right beside the Leviathan, slide under him when he attempts to reload? He can't strike us if we're beneath his gun. With Beta and Gamma assisting to distract him, we could then slip away just as the Mots make their approach. That is the most insane damn plan I've ever heard. Hold on. Actually, no, that could work. Wrench, shoot again. Make him furious. Somewhat concerned that at least 2 of his crew members and closest companions have suddenly lost their minds, Wrench obeys, "Yes, sir, Captain Ahab, sir," and once more discharges Thunderbolt's cannon, marginally enlarging the dent produced by the earlier shot. ETA 1 minute. The Leviathan retaliates by discharging its weapon at the humans, narrowly missing them by less than a meter, destroying the factory wall behind them. Sparks, floor it! All right, geez, I can't believe we're actually doing this. The tank speeds up, hurtling towards its target at maximum velocity. Don't brake, ram him! That wasn't in the plan. I improved it. Sparks swiftly closes the distance, the 2 vehicles colliding with one another. Sparks scatter as metal crashes against metal, and the crew jerks forward, having just experienced a deliberate car crash. Despite this, they were now in a far safer position, the Leviathan unable to lower its gun to target the smaller tank. When it attempts to move backwards to get the tank in range, Sparks manages to maneuver Thunderbolt to run alongside the Leviathan, staying precisely side by side with the massive beast. The considerably slower Leviathan is unable to create a gap. Nice job, Beta and Gamma. Sit reps. Beta here, we have visual on the Leviathan. Gamma, we have visual as well. Where are you, leader? We're parked behind the Leviathan. We are right beside him. Who the hell came up with that idea? 30 seconds. We might want to get out of here, Willie. You 2 provide covering fire as we make a dash for shelter. A Mott strike is inbound. Roger, firing. While Beta and Gamma slam into the Leviathan's flank, its focus split by their attacks, Leader remains near it, anticipating the perfect instant to flee. 20 seconds, we can start moving any time now. Not yet, wait just a few more seconds. Tiger Wing reporting, we've got eyes on the target, getting ready for a strafing run. 10 seconds. Now! Thunderbolt advances at maximum velocity, keen to create as much distance between itself and the Leviathan as it can. The Leviathan, in the process of rotating its turret towards Beta and Gamma, was incapable of targeting any objective in time to secure another elimination. The AFS-65 Horus was a fixed-wing aircraft engineered specifically for eliminating armored targets. Deployed from either a ground base or a carrier and approaching at hypersonic speeds, it then decelerates to Mach 1 and flies directly above the designated target, either showering it with its 40mm rotary cannon or devastating an entire area with its cluster bomb pods. The target before these 3 Mots was almost insultingly simple, immobile, and lacking any anti-air capabilities. All 3 in the formation simultaneously discharge their cannons, tearing into the Leviathan. While the initial 500 or so rounds don't inflict much damage to the tank itself, its armor is stripped away, allowing the subsequent 500 to rip the tank apart. One fortunate round strikes a high-explosive shell, obliterating the tank. All that remains is a smoldering heap of debris. Strafe complete, good kill. Damn straight, Tiger. Appreciate the backup. Everyone inside Thunderbolt lets out a collective sigh of relief, thankful they made it out in one piece. Thoughts turned to the crew of Alpha, that weren't so lucky. What's this, Granny? Samantha's granddaughter, young Valentina, had learned only a few hours earlier that she had been in the Marines. She needed to inquire about her background for one of those school assignments, and Samantha decided it was best to share the truth with her. They were now sifting through a chest of her old belongings, her uniforms, photographs, keepsakes from the theater she served in, and the 10-year-old Valentina was savoring it. Samantha, though she rarely dwelled on her first career these days, was taking a trip down memory lane, a set of boxes containing soil from every planet she visited: Venus, Einstein, 4, Jigoku, Crixus, and numerous others were piled in a stack in the corner. Her medals, sealed in tin and free of dust, are now in the light of day for the first time in decades, gleaming with silver, gold, and iron. What drew Val's attention was her old gear, which she had been permitted to retain after stepping down. Her first aid kit, which had preserved her life on more occasions than she'd ever confessed to Val, lay open, but wouldn't be handled by a child in this era if she had any say in the matter. Samantha was grasping her comm device, through which she must have issued countless commands, when she glanced up to respond to Val's inquiry. "Val, be careful with that. It's very sharp." Val glanced at the object in her hands, then calmly extended it toward Samantha. Samantha placed her comm unit down and took the item. In contrast to her hands, now wrinkled and not nearly as powerful, it hadn't aged at all, not a speck of rust visible on its surface. As she had expected, the edge remained as sharp as razor wire, just as prepared to perform its task as when she had placed it in the box all those years ago. Lieutenant Colonel Alex Steele. "What's our next move, ma'am? We'll perish out here if we don't act." "Then we move, damn it." "Brigadier, we need you to concentrate fire on those machine guns. We're shifting out of cover and into the office." "We hear you, Park. Painting targets now." "How many us are left, Major?" "Barely enough for a company. You're the Major. Christ, grant me strength." "Okay, everyone. We'll charge for the office when I give the signal. I'll be really damn disappointed if more than a third of you perish here." "All right, go!" The assault on the office building is hellish but surreal. Artillery fire keeps the heads of most of the Ironhides down, but a courageous few still maintain their composure and continue firing. All Sam could think about was the chain of events that brought her to this hell. All of Nexus, still under Dracus' control, was a pocket encompassing the city center, including the Cour d'Avren, the Hall of Rulers, seat of the planetary government. It was small, yet packed with anti-air defenses and cut off from the rest of the city by the River Nix. The sole way to get troops in for the final victory was to secure a beachhead on the opposite side of a bridge and maintain it until more firepower could arrive and expand the foothold. This was the final bridge not yet demolished and had a government office building at the other end to offer cover for the next wave. The Jupiter 39th was granted the honor of capturing it. At this point, the plan has fallen apart, as the bridge was set to explode the moment they crossed. Furthermore, the Ironhides' elite guard were concealed in every possible hiding spot, unleashing a relentless hail of gunfire that was devastating the 41st. Their sole remaining option was to seize the office regardless, establish a strong position, and offer covering fire while the men on the opposite side worked on repairing the bridge. Sam, in spite of the bullets and mortars, reached the office, as did nearly all of her surviving Marines. They burst through the doors, at last able to turn their weapons on the Dracus. The Dracus, equipped for long-range defense, couldn't aim quickly enough to even make a dent in the humans' still superior numbers. "Hendricks, you and your team secure the entrance. Don't allow any apes to enter or exit. Everyone else will advance upwards. They're cornered in here. Brigadier, we've secured the ground level." "All right, we're making headway on the bridge, but we won't be able to complete it until those Dracus are cleared out." "Roger. Let's go." Beneath all the computations in her mind, which strategies would be effective, which ones wouldn't, how many lives would be lost in the coming hours, she experienced a strange sensation leading what was essentially a company once more, particularly when it came to slaying Dracus with a salvaged rifle. She felt simultaneously a decade older and a decade younger. The humans advance up the floors, battling room by room. This time the Dracus were ready and had begun shifting their weapons from the windows to strategic points in the floor layouts. "Can't proceed, ma'am. They've got a firearm down that hallway. It'd be a massacre." "Private, a grenade, if you please." "What? But we can't throw it far enough to—" "Not for him, for the wall. We create an opening and pass through that way. Come on, you learned this in basic. Everyone, move back." All 8 individuals in the section Sam was following moved away from the wall that was about to be destroyed. Removing the pin and letting it fall to the ground, Sam rushes towards the improvised area where the charge was set. The grenade detonates, blasting through the wall while leaving the more robust steel floor undamaged. Move! The group proceeds to encounter 5 of their adversaries, now surrounded and disoriented by the explosion that had just occurred behind them. They swiftly pivot, though, and face the oncoming wave of people. The events of the next few seconds, Sam will never forget. The Dracus, upon realizing the humans had them outgunned and outnumbered, collectively decided to charge into them, reasoning that their sturdier build and more powerful muscles could overcome the human advantage in weaponry. One in particular, without a weapon, heads straight for Sam. Running as fast as she could, Sam is only able to fire a few shots at him before he reaches her. Knocking away her rifle and seizing her, he slams into her and causes her to crash into the wall behind her. Keeping one hand on her chest, he begins attempting to strangle her, with her barely managing to alleviate the pressure on her throat. "I'll hang your guts out of the window, primitive." Her mind and physique awash with hormones, signaling imminent danger, and readying her accordingly, she reaches a split-second decision. This bastard is about to kill me. I must kill him. In sync with the power joints of her suit, she delivers a kick to the Dracus's shin to destabilize his footing, and pushes him slightly away to create some space. Her right hand quickly reaches for her entrenching tool, which is folded and attached to her torso. Grasping it by the handle, she releases the blade and starts to lift it upward, extending her arm to prepare for a swing. She notices the vulnerability in her foe, his neck. The helmet sits above it, the body armor lies below, but the neck itself is protected by nothing more than skin and bone. The edge of the implement gleamed, its blade yearning for a taste. It was customary for all soldiers in the field to hone their tool daily, to the point where they could slice their meals with it. The blade was weighty as well, the carbon fiber grip reducing the burden but preserving the momentum that excavation gear required. Sam wasn't aware of it then, but she was continuing a legacy that extends back thousands of years. Her forebears defeated entire barbarian hordes with the gladius, brought down knights using pikes, killed one another with bayonets, and charged trenches wielding knives. Despite all their progress, warfare had always boiled down to one soldier defeating another with a formed piece of metal from just centimeters away. She takes the swing, ensuring the edge aligns with the point of impact. With each passing millisecond, it gathered momentum, hurtling towards its target like a runaway train. It makes contact. A profound laceration forms where the implement meets skin. Striking carotid arteries and jugular veins, yellow blood pours from the swiftly expanding wound. Cutting through the Dracus soldier's spinal cord, he becomes completely paralyzed before he even perceives the pain, and starts to collapse to the ground. Now looming over her foe, she extracts her implement from his throat and strikes once more, and again, and yet again. This here is an entrenching tool, Val. We'd use it to dig holes in the ground, which we referred to as foxholes, so we could be better protected when the fighting began. Cool. Why is it so sharp, though? Samantha examines it, the unblemished surface mirroring her face concealing its past, and comes to the correct conclusion. It's so we could cut into the ground more easily. It's quite a view, isn't it, Colonel? Sam was perched on the rooftop of the office, the Jupiter 39th, or what was left of it anyway, having seized the building and provided cover for the bridge crews long enough to bring in some reinforcements. The front lines had now shifted a few hundred meters away in the direction of the hall. She was able to spot the hall now, a couple of clicks away, with the golden dome reflecting the orange evening sunlight. At the present pace, it would be captured sometime in the morning, 3 days ahead of the deadline. It wasn't her duty, but her regiment was destroyed. She would need to begin composing letters to many grieving families, informing them that their children, partners, parents wouldn't be returning. She knew each of them, personally, had grown up alongside some. A part of her felt as though she had just lost members of her own family. However, appearance was crucial, particularly when you were in command. Falling apart at this moment wouldn't help. On a positive note, it'll be some time before they're back in combat, as they need to return home and replenish their numbers. The duration of the war is a factor, but that's an issue outside her level of authority. Indeed it is, Major. Front row seats, Sam remarked. They could hear the battle raging on, driving back the Dracus meter by meter. She would be assisting with the injured if the medics hadn't insisted she sit down and rest. She wasn't one to disregard orders, especially not when they involved not doing something. After working her tail off, so she found her place on the roof. Too bad we weren't the ones capturing the hall itself, though. Would have been nice to raise the flag and be in the pictures. Oh, don't fret, Major. I'm certain our Lord has something challenging in mind for us. Hand me the tea, would you? Yeah, that's it. I wouldn't be too certain. We'll end up with newbies for a couple months, just for the conflict to finish when we reach the front. That's it, training rookies. The one thing worse than assaulting a stronghold? The Almighty is rather swift lately. You could be right about that. Nevertheless, at this moment, we're tough-as-nails warriors, and we've just rescued the entire military campaign. The Major lifts his flask. Sam returns the toast. Once again. Private Dmitry Volkov. Nexus was a husk. 9 out of every 10 structures were now little more than debris. Much of what remained standing was scorched by incendiary bombs and flamethrower-led attacks. Now, even the most zealous Dracus are realizing that no miracle is substantial enough to rescue them. Humanity's triumph on Crixus was absolute. Yet even so, many will battle to the bitter end, and had sufficient provisions and armaments to endure that long. Their unconditional capitulation will not be achieved without difficulty. Pyotr's first lieutenant shouted orders to the platoon, who were assigned to sweep the apartment building they had entered. There's something in this apartment, boys. You can smell it even through your suit. I want every single thing in here turned over and stripped down. If I end up getting my head blown off by a sniper, I'll kill the useless so-and-so who missed him. Now get moving. The different sections got to work, fanning out and inspecting room by room for Ironhides. The platoon made its way up the floors, ensuring there was no opportunity for escape. Any Dracus concealed inside was cornered. Pyotr's unit, on the other hand, was to descend. The cellar served as a storage area for this part of the city garrison, and was a probable location for any resistance fighters to conceal themselves. All right, fellas, we're not going to secure a room by smiling like a group of idiots at it, Corporal Smith remarked, taking point as he headed down the stairs. What greeted him was a haven for those seeking to vanish. The power had been out for ages, and crates that once contained supplies and munitions created a jumbled environment. Activating the light on his rifle, conducting a quick survey of the room, Jones begins issuing commands. Pyotr, take the lead. Yes, sir. Pyotr obeys, cautiously moving forward into the darkness, scanning his front and sides with his own lights. He's aware that if someone were present, he might have only moments left to live. The fact that he isn't dead yet is a positive indication. He notices it, the faintest glimmer, a microscopic reflection of light, 2 actually, appears at the edge of his vision. Someone was present. In an instant, he spins to confront it, pointing directly at it. Given its distance from him, just a faint amount of light falls upon it. Put your hands up, you're surrounded. No reply comes. Now the remainder of his unit were aiming weapons at the target, yet still no response. Pyotr, move forward, keeping an eye on his team's lines of fire and maintaining the glint in his sights. Pyotr gradually reduces the distance. Near the glint, additional glints emerge. Initially a pair, then several dozen. Yet there remains nothing but silence. It was until Pyotr got closer when he saw what they really were. They were neither Dracus nor humans, but a diverse array of races. Remlin, Ilomi, Raflam, Fromni, Flixin, yet all shared a similar condition. Though still alive, they appeared closer to death than seemed possible. Each was unnaturally thin, as if skin or hide had been stretched over a skeleton, their faces hollow and devoid of warmth. Any joyful memories, now just that. Memories. Barely concealed by their tattered clothing were chains, cutting into their wrists and ankles so tightly that they had blistered. Not one was standing. None had the strength to do so, though some clung to each other desperately, the gravely ill resting on the laps of the marginally healthier, children embracing their parents and guardians. Pyotr and his unit lowered their weapons, appalled at the sight before them. My God, sir, we need to evacuate them from here. Approaching Pyotr, Jones concurred. I had the same thought. Lieutenant Hawkins, there are slaves down here. We require assistance in getting them out. A fire raged within Pyotr's spirit. The wretched scene in front of him was the most repulsive, appalling thing he had ever witnessed. He found it difficult to fathom how the Drakus could rationalize it. This went beyond warfare. He longed desperately to assist the people in front of him, to shield them from what they had endured. But even more than that, he yearned to rip the innards out of the next steelhide he encountered. Colonel Frederick William Davies. The Drakus are now trapped within a pocket, scarcely 500 meters across. Before long, our banners will wave over their dark center, the Cour d'Avren itself. When that happens, those brutes who haven't yet perished, but instead hide inside their shelters, will, if they possess any wisdom, surrender themselves to our mercy. Stand proud, gentlemen. Every man, woman, and child who has fallen victim to their brutality is honored by what we've achieved, but they implore us to give of ourselves once more, to secure our complete and undeniable triumph. By midday, this world will belong to us, and whether in formal attire or a coffin, we'll all be returning home. The gaze of every person is now fixed upon us, the 892nd Mars Regiment, as we shall be the final ones to shed blood in this accursed city, be it our own or theirs. Let's give them a performance to remember. Don't let our losses dishearten you. Our foe must be utterly foolish to oppose us, but they are zealots and will show no mercy, so they shall receive none. Each of you is lethal, and together you form an unstoppable force of adrenaline and steel, the most formidable weapon the galaxy has ever created. I am honored to have served alongside every one of you. Each company carries a flag, and if you witness your standard-bearer fall before you, assume his role, bring it to the rooftop, no matter the price. Let the spirits of those who've fallen accompany you, and may fortune be on your side. Warrior Crag Zornath. What are those those humans up to? Dreg corrected himself. He knew precisely what they were doing. They were working themselves. Ha ha ha, working. Primitives? He could still jest despite everything. Into a frenzy, their warrior master delivering a speech in their crude tongue, while his horde chants and cheers, prepared to slay all who opposed them. Some of them were carrying blue and white flags, standard bearers, waving their banner with fervor. This by itself was not so strange. Drakus did it all the time before an attack. It was that the humans were doing it. Over the past month, they had been methodical about their destruction of this city, arranging everything to collapse swiftly and efficiently, leaving little to rebuild. A brief moment of blood-curdling hatred in the midst of battle was to be anticipated, but they never lost control, never truly abandoned formality. This time, it was different. They were aware victory was at hand, with the only question being the number of human casualties in the coming hours. Usually, they'd simply proceed, not dragging things out. In this instance, however, they were making a spectacle of it. Dreg could venture a guess as to why. It was looming behind him. The Hall of Rulers, hallowed and off-limits to all aliens, only Drakus deserving of being in its vicinity. Now it was a trophy, and the humans were on the verge of claiming it. Not just that, they were going to flaunt it in the clan's faces. That was what frightened him most of all. There would be no honor in this last stand. The humans would make certain of it. A series of explosions, followed by many more, draws Dreg's attention to the courtyard in front of the hall. It was a labyrinth of trenches, barbed wire, and gun emplacements. Equipment and supplies that had endured decades in storage without being fired or consumed were now arming and feeding the final troops still battling in Nexus. Dreg was well aware of what the humans would have discovered in the city's ruins. Slaves and the offspring of slaves abandoned to decay by their fleeing masters. There were numerous voices in the galaxy opposing the Drakus way, and humanity was among the most vocal. Even with the human artillery's bombardment, he could still hear the jeers of thousands of soldiers. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but he understood what they were trying to convey. No quarter. The earth itself trembles from the human artillery. Another explosion, another portion of trench is obliterated, another handful of fighters face their demise. Then they charge. Warrior Crag Zornath. Along the entire line, hundreds of humans cry out, dashing as quickly as they can towards the initial defense line. The warriors positioned there were pinned down by light artillery and heavy arms fire. They're unable to get clear shots at the enemy until he is directly above them. Next, the humans activate the flamethrowers. Those attempting to flee to the second line, seeking to evade the flames, are shot down, collapsing onto the barbed wire like carcasses on a butcher's hooks. The humans don't pursue. They swiftly enter the first trench, holding position until their entire force is prepared for the next assault. Shooting at the Dracus positions, the initial wave provides covering fire for a second, which makes a rapid advance to join them for the upcoming attack. The trembling in Dreg's hands returns. He's been experiencing it for the past week, ever since the humans bombed the office where his band was restocking supplies. He insisted it was merely the cold after losing his jacket, but the shakes would reappear even during midday. If his warrior master noticed him trembling, he would disembowel him immediately for showing fear. Not like that seemed to matter now. The humans were within range of him now and were preparing to charge. Dreg lifted his rifle, a weapon his grandfather could have used, and aimed downrange toward the human trench. Once they breached and seized the second trench, the third and final line would be the only thing keeping the humans from reaching the hall. Smoke fills his sight. Naturally, the humans would deploy smoke grenades to conceal their passage across the wire. After they reassembled beyond the wire, shrouded in smoke, it would be a straightforward dash to the trench. Dreg battles his rebellious hands, striving to hold his rifle still. Apart from the artillery, the line falls quiet, anticipating the humans' next move. Out they emerge, in numbers. Half drop to the ground to shoot at the trench, while the other half sprint towards new craters. This is the moment. Dreg positions himself to fire at least one person in his last instance. Pulling the trigger, the gun recoils under Dreg's feeble grasp, but strikes the chest of a human. He collapses immediately, aims for another shot, pulls, another falls. Dreg notices one of the flag-carrying humans. Aiming to at least discourage them, Dreg targets her, not him, as initially thought, chest, and takes the shot. Similar to the previous two, she collapses to the ground, her flag landing in the mud. Then something extraordinary happens. The man behind her lets his weapon fall, retrieves the flag from near her, and resumes his dash to the trench. Dreg had already shifted his gaze elsewhere, but noticed the man's movements in his peripheral vision. What was that idiot thinking? The humans tumble into the second trench. As soon as they do, the warriors inside were faded, overwhelmed, and outmatched. That just left them. The identical routine unfolds. The humans in the trench provide covering fire, while reinforcements make it back up. They appeared to need a few, as well. There were dozens of bodies, nearly 100, lying between the trenches. Some remained in one piece, others were blown apart. Some were on open ground, others entangled in wire. But still they advanced. Dreg inspected his weapon. It was an older model, utilizing finite ammunition. He had only a single full magazine of 5 rounds remaining. Dreg reloaded. Maybe he'll spend eternity hunting with the gods. No wires between the trenches, no smoke. The humans aren't fond of employing the same tactics twice in succession. The humans leave the trench. Dreg takes aim. Someone giving orders, possibly an officer. 1. A soldier with a submachine gun, one who steps out of line and rises to fire in bursts as his unit moves forward. 2. A rifleman taking cover in a crater. 3. Part of a bazooka team taking aim at a sniper team on the roof. 4. A human dashes up to Dreg's position, a rifleman, and delivers a kick to his face. Dreg's weary, famished, trembling body can't withstand the assault and collapses to the ground. Before he can aim at the human, the attacker swats away Dreg's gun and stamps on his chest. This forces the air from Dreg's lungs and thrusts his throat against the gleaming bayonet at the end of the human's rifle. After an instant, peace. Private Dmitry Volkov, the hall itself. Spacious enough to accommodate every chief on the planet, it was an enormous area, one designed to propagate sound. However, in place of festivities marking victorious battles and strident demands for cleansing the political hierarchy, different noises reverberated through the age-old structures. Bullets flying, soldiers and warriors dying, a world order being toppled and replaced, plus some old human ribbing. How's our company mascot doing, Pyotr? Less chatting, a bit more firing, maybe. Pyotr was gripping the flag he'd retrieved from the fallen woman, as though it might offer him shelter against the Ironhides defending to their last ounce of blood. If one were inclined to be superstitious, it certainly was. As far as he could tell, his flag was the only one to have made it this far, and it had just a few hundred meters left before being planted. It appeared that the one who would claim the corps d'Avren for the human race would be him. Either him or the guy right behind him. Yes, sir. Field Marshal Pyotr, sir. Private Stone next to him responds, pleased to have an unobstructed view and numerous Dracus to eliminate. They were positioned on the balcony, overlooking the largely Dracus-occupied chamber. The chamber was being swiftly cleared, with a handful of Dracus managing to retreat to the main staircase, bolstering the positions on the second floor. The same positions he was about to charge into, with no gun. Take it easy, Private. Just stay with us, and we'll get you up to the roof, Corporal Smith assured him. I'm all right, sir. It's just that we were 50 meters behind an hour ago. I don't have the stamina to maintain this pace all day. Well, about an hour ago, there were a hell of a lot more Dracus. We've gotten them down to under 100. They're about to snap any minute now. Wood remarks as he takes down his 25th kill of the day. One more hour passed, and it was only then that they glimpsed the midday sun peeking through an opening in the battered roof. They were up in the attic, divided equally between human and Dracus. 30 Dracus, 100 humans. One final battle. Many had fallen since they started at daybreak, yet Pyotr and his banner remained standing, though both were soiled and ragged. Corporal Jack, have your section flank those Dracus at the third entrance. Clear the way for our men down there. Come on, you ugly fucks, pack it in. Oh God, he got me in the fucking arm. I'm gonna die. Ah! The mayhem was driving Pyotr insane. These Dracus were quite skilled, not allowing a gap to form, simply retreating when they suffered enough casualties. Even when greatly outnumbered, they maintained advantageous positions and were difficult to corner. Anyone who carelessly left a limb or digit exposed beyond cover was swiftly penalized. At last, the Dracus' resistance crumbled. With the final entrance to the Antic lost, a fresh surge of humans flooded in, and the Dracus found itself overwhelmed by the sheer number of adversaries. This is our opportunity. Go, 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 Lieutenant Hawkins shouted, the remaining members of his platoon leaping from their hiding spots and charging the final Ironhides as a unit. Pyotr leads the assault, bearing the banner to the final defense. The remaining Dracus are sliced to pieces. Pyotr climbs the ladder second, ahead of Wood. As he ascends, he's met with a stunning sky juxtaposed against a devastated city. The clouds he anticipated would be ash from the lingering embers of the citywide blaze that had raged for a month. Beyond them, a bright yellow sun and azure sky welcomed his gaze. As he turns, he catches his reflection in the golden dome of the hall, partially collapsed from the bombing. There it stands, the facade of the hall, a flagpole bearing the banner of Crimson Clan. That's the spot where he'll place it. Listen up, gentlemen. I've just been in touch with our higher-ups. They've made contact with the enemy leaders of the planet, and they've decided to surrender. Give yourselves a round of applause. Excellent work, all of you. Moving a step closer, unaccustomed to the abrupt silence, Pyotr nears the location. We have just gotten news that the 5 core worlds of the Dracus Dominion's Crimson Clan have agreed to a complete surrender and are now being occupied by the space fleets of the Human Federation. After removing the Dracus flag and securing the human one in its position, Pyotr moves back a step, at last taking in the sight of countless soldiers celebrating the victory that spanned the entire planet. His hands start shaking.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.